Okay, boys, let's talk about the T-Wolves, who have been fantastic this year, of course, and I really want to talk about the defense. We will get to the offense, but it's going to be a lot of defense. Also, Ant just had a small injury. It doesn't seem like it's really that concerning, but he might be out for a little bit. The first general points to make before we get into more detailed stuff, Rudy Gobert is all the way back. I think he ended up being underrated defensively by the end of last year, but even so, the back injury was slowing him down a little bit. Not the case this year. Defensive Player of the Year, Rudy Gobert is back, and of the recent games I watched from them, the one against the Knicks was the most striking with the number of times it was like RJ or Randall especially were just passing out of drives because Rudy was just existing near the rim. And on top of that, they currently lead the league in mid-range attempts by opponents, which that's definitely by design when you look at Rudy Gobert playing drop defense. But that's not the only thing that's going on with this scheme. They are allowing like Anthony Edwards and I mean Jaden McDaniels has been out for the past few games, so it's been more Nickeil Alexander-Walker. But they're allowing, I say they, Chris Finch is allowing those guys to be a little more aggressive. Cat has had moments of like more aggressiveness. Kyle Anderson has had more like opportune double teams and stuff. Like it's kind of a mix of Rudy in the middle, and even then Rudy is sometimes upping the aggressiveness, and we'll get to that. And then everybody else either upping or sometimes lowering the aggression depending on the opponent, how the game's going, whatever. And so I'll give you an example. Their recent win against the Thunder, which was just a great game overall, but there were so many times where Rudy was helping off of, let's say, Jalen Williams, big Jalen Williams, not J-Dub. He's helping off of him. And then if the ball ends up back in Jalen Williams' hands, it's like Kyle Anderson or Edwards or whoever's closest to him are the ones who like actually close out to him. And then it'll be like Rudy then effectively starts helping off of their guy. And this was happening even sometimes when it'd be like Isaiah Joe, who's a fantastic shooter. Like there was a play where Isaiah Joe and Chet were kind of too close to each other on the wing in the corner, and you could see Isaiah Joe telling Chet like, "Hey, like go farther up because Rudy's gonna help off of us, and Kyle Anderson's gonna effectively guard both of us at the same time on the wing," which is exactly what happened. Now, to be clear, Rudy still has to close out on guys sometimes, and he's doing a good job of that. He's doing a good job of everything defensively right now. I'm sure people have seen by now Rudy locking up Chet on that one possession late in that OKC game. But also in that OKC game, like you had plays where Edwards was just hard helping off of Giddey, like from the wing or the corner, which that's the type of thing where I think when Rudy first got there, the chemistry wasn't totally there. The timing wasn't always there of like how aggressive can I be with Rudy dropping back, you know? I mean, you can see another example of that in like the first quarter of their last one against the Sixers. Joel Embiid was not playing, so that gave him a bit of a break. But I mean, you've got like a Maxey Paul Reed pick and roll up top. Anthony Edwards is helping really hard off of Daniel House, and then it becomes like Edwards closes out to House, and then he drives, and then Rudy's waiting for him at the rim, and nobody's scoring over Rudy right now. And throughout all of this, you've had, at least lately, Nickeil Alexander-Walker just pressuring ball handlers. I mean, he's picking up like Tyrese Maxey at half court or Jalen Brunson around half court. Of course, when Jaden McDaniels is in the game, he's the one doing all that. He was on Brandon Ingram a lot in their Pelicans win. And, talking about that Pelicans game, they started out with like Rudy dropping back on screens, and especially like in that fourth quarter, Valanciunas is hitting him with like pick and pops around the free throw line, which like it's Valanciunas, you're daring him to make jumpers, but okay, he was making them. And eventually they said, screw it, let's just play more aggressively. You had like Anthony Edwards and Kyle Anderson double teaming Brandon Ingram off of screens. You had Rudy high hedging on like one Brandon Ingram like wing pick and roll that results in like Ingram pushing off of him into an offensive foul. You had Cat switching onto Ingram like very early in a possession. But again, it's a sometimes more aggressive scheme. I mean, you're definitely going to get your possessions like last night against the Jazz where it's a Keontae George pick and roll up top. It's Rudy dropping and they're just kind of daring him to make a pull up two or a floater or whatever, And to talk about Cat specifically, I mean, the dude just looks great. Whether it's like the one-on-one defense he had in their recent one against the Jazz, like on John Collins, that was just super solid. Or if I can reference that OKC game, again, I mean, there was one play where like he is helping very hard off of Cason Wallace, who was wide open in the corner. This is with Rudy not in the game. And Cat, in like 1 second, goes from the paint to the three-point line to close out to Cason Wallace because he got the skip pass from, I want to say it was SGA. And then after he ends up passing it out, he then gets back to the paint and contests Jalen Williams at the rim. And just in general, they've had a lot of moments of getting decently aggressive with helping off of guys, and then it's like, well, we're going to pass to that guy, and then someone's going to run him off the line, and then they got one or two bigs just waiting for him, whether it's Rudy or Cat or Naz Reid as well, playing with either one of those guys. Like, it's just good stuff. And then, the ball pressure of Alexander Walker picking guys up earlier, Jaden McDaniels, and he's in there. Now, I will say in their recent loss to the Kings, you did see what can be the other side of that, where the Kings went nuts from three, and the Wolves had like a tough time getting around screens, or it was just miscommunications or a second too late, or like Troy Brown Jr. is overhelping off of Kevin Huerter in the corner or whatever. Or there's like a little too much scrambling going on after an offensive rebound. So that is the one sort of downside to this slightly at times more aggressive defense. That was a similar thing in their loss to the Suns, where the Suns went nuts from three on them in that one. But when it's working and you've got Rudy back there and Cat who's on his best defensively, like it's just kind of terrifying with what you're supposed to do as an offense against it. To give you some numbers, they are 15th in opponent three-point attempts per game. I would say that about tracks. Towards the bottom of the league in opponent shots at the rim per game, that's a Rudy Gobert special. Also first in opponent mid-range attempts per game, also a Rudy Gobert special. Anyway, if we could talk about the offense for a bit. I said many nice things about Mike Conley in the role player video, so I won't take too long here, but I'll just say again, obviously he doesn't do this as much as he used to, but he's still able to get within the three-point line enough to shift the defense and make the next play for guys as opposed to just only floating around the perimeter, fighting defensively, and then he's just the perfect decision maker for these guys. My favorite thing that they do on offense is when they have a Rudy and Cat horns action, and so then it'll be like Conley or Edwards getting a screen from one of them, and then from there they can kind of do a million things. It can be Rudy on the roll, it could be Cat popping, but also sometimes if the initial action doesn't lead to anything, Cat will then use Rudy's screen, because Rudy will stay in the screen for a second longer, and sometimes that can lead to a pop, or then it's Cat driving off of that. It's a simple action that does get him a lot of stuff. And to speak on Cat specifically, I think the physical drives are my favorite thing about him. And I mean, that's not to say he's not going to shoot jump shots and stuff. Obviously, he is. And the biggest example of this lately being probably that game winner he had over Dyson Daniels in the Pelicans game where, I mean, Conley just set him a screen beforehand to force the switch, and then from there it was just a weight advantage. But hell, just a small example for you, like their recent one against the Grizzlies, which, I mean, yeah, everybody's beating the Grizzlies right now, but okay, you won the game you were supposed to. One of his early buckets is he screens for Conley, gets the Aldama switch. He has pretty much the entire middle of the floor to do what he wants with it. Puts his shoulder into him, and then before you know, we're at the rim. And then as far as Ant, I mean, I've already said many things about his mid-range shooting this year, and look, with Ant, he's going to take contested jump shots. We all know this. I think the biggest thing with the Wolves is keeping him involved in some actual sets as much as you can, even if it's just a simple wing pick and roll with Rudy Gobert, or it's a double screen with the two bigs, or it's a DHO with one of them. Whatever it is, just make sure Ant is doing enough of that, because while, yes, he can make those contested jumpers, and he has been, and he can win you any game with that, you also want to make his job as easy as possible on offense. Of course, Kyle Anderson fits into all this on both sides of the floor, and he remains one of the better passing wings in the league. It's always fun to watch Naz Reid close the distance that someone might be giving him with, a dribble, then putting his shoulder into him, or just shooting the three. So yeah, I think the rest of this season is about maximizing this offense. I mean, right now they're 19th in offense and they're first in defense. If they can get to, let's say, 10th in offense and then first in defense, then that model suggests very good things for the playoffs. So I think that's the big thing for them.